idea is completely gone out of the window. You may either see an ad or while even browsing on your quick commerce app, which directs you to a purchase almost instantaneously. So there is really no cycle. It's a dot.
I think we are in a stage in India where we're talking about the death of a national brand. There cannot be a national brand anymore.
Marketers are very, very comfortable now understanding that yes, that one creative that came on a marketplace, I might not have approved it.
Somewhere people think that online is performance and everything else is brand. I think online or digital is as much as brand building.
Okay, so what we are saying is go back to basics.
Yeah, always.
Have a single view. Have all the data, whether it is brand or performance, at one place, and look at it very simply. What is driving what? Don't get caught and go overboard or split hair. Hello everybody. So nice to meet all of you again.
We have today K. Ramakrishnan from World Panel of Kantar. He is in fact my co-host today. We have Ajay Gupte from WPP, Pawan Sarda from House of Abhinandan Lodha, and Satya Raghavan from Google.
So what we had looked at last time is how the customer journey has gone for a complete toss, and there is a complete convergence from discovery to sale. What we are really looking at is how do we handle this full continuum in practice? What are the various steps we need to do so that you manage this full funnel properly, right from what we classically call brand up to performance and the interplay as one continuum, right? So let's say we look at from right from impulse purchase to FMCG to home appliances to, let's say, a car, because it's different for each of these categories. So Ajay, can you just give us some perspective?
The traditional consumer journey of IDA is completely gone out of the window, which is kind of like a circle where you have what we call a priming stage, which is when the customer is actually not in the market to buy, but is seeing communication. It can come from paid media, it can come from influencers, it can come from family and friends, it can come from any sighting in the general life of the consumer. All of these things are creating input in the mind of the consumer. Thereafter, there is a trigger which pushes the consumer towards what we call the active stage, when the customer is actively looking at making a purchase. And then the customer goes into a search mode or into a decision-making mode and finally makes the purchase. An FMCG decision-making process has become almost instantaneous with quick commerce. You may either see an ad or while even browsing on your quick commerce app or trying to make a purchase for something, you see something else which directs you to a purchase almost instantaneously. So there is really no cycle. It's a dot. It's not even a line. Coming to some durables, and what I have seen, which quite incredible, is some of the quick commerce players are actually selling durables like fans, water heaters, gold, and iPhones. Do you know that there is a large amount of motorcycles which are actually getting sold on Flipkart and Amazon? And that's another incredible development. So even that has become extremely complex. Now coming to cars, again, while the journey would possibly be the longest here, but the ability of the consumer to access information and actually go down and make the purchase has been enabled to an extent that is really crunching the cycle. Now this makes it very important for us. One is to be able to identify who is the consumer who is ripe at that moment, or can be ripe, can be made ripe very quickly. These data signals are extremely important for us. That will enable us to communicate at that right moment to that right consumer with the right comms, which again brings AI into the picture, because the communication actually needs to be customized on a rapid, almost instantaneous basis, depending on our reading of the data signals, which tell us that this person may consider or may immediately buy. Therefore, importance of data to identify consumer, identify my state of mind of the consumer, and the intent to purchase of the consumer and how fast it can be triggered, followed by the ability to communicate instantaneously at a one-to-one level. DCO, as you call it, dynamic creative optimization and data signal reading has become extremely important. And a lot of brands are actually depending on this and successfully reaping benefits.
See, I think what we are talking about currently is the accessibility of or a distribution in that sense, right? I think that's become vast in today's scenario, so much so that on your phone on probably in 10 minutes, right?
Yeah.
But I think if you see from a consumer perspective, even if that motorcycle, right, he's not going to just buy just because he saw something and quickly, right? I think brand will always play a role. The funnel will always play a role, right? What we are giving a lot of credit is to the last mile or the last click, but what we are not probably thinking or considering what has gone behind taking that decision, right? So I think even if you go back and see which motorcycle would have bought the most, I think whatever has the highest brand equity, I'm sure that's being translated from a conversion perspective. Therefore, brand building cannot be taken away. It's not like you put today, I go ahead and create a XYZ brand in motorcycle and I put it there, I assure you will not be bought, right? You still have to build the brand. You still have to create consideration in terms of test or whatever it is.
In fact, the quicker the decision making reflects on comfort.
Yeah.
And familiarity. The stock of the brand in the mind has become extremely important because decision making is so quick.
Sometimes exceptions tend to get overstated, Ajay. I mean, in the sense that if a dog bites a man, it's not news. If a man bites a dog, that's news. So the motorcycle purchase online is to me more like man biting a dog kind of thing. It definitely happens, but there's so much more before that final press or click of the button that has happened, right? So I don't agree that the funnel has disappeared and the model IDA has disappeared. I don't agree. Sequences have changed.
Yes.
It can start anywhere to anywhere. But absolutely, is there a starting point of awareness? Yes, of course there is a starting point of awareness. Where do you pick it up from could be different. Where do you pick the consideration could be different. But all of these are pretty much well and round, fully in place. And like you rightly said, even for an FMCG, the decision, it is possible for somebody to be aware now and buy immediately. But that's not the rule.
Yeah.
So the possibility cannot swing practices is what I would like to submit.
Just last weekend, my daughter wanted to have a cup of tea and she wanted a biscuit along with it. And we usually have cream crackers as a biscuit. And it was not there at home. So out came the Blinkit app and I searched the term cream crackers. And there were 6 cream crackers that came on screen, right? The one biscuit that we all been having for years is the Britannia cream cracker version or whatever. But there were 5 other brands in there.
Yeah.
And 3 of them I had never heard of. And one I know is a foreign brand. Suddenly that cream cracker decision, which was actually you would think is a done and dusted decision, suddenly became a conversation and the tea went cold. Purely because we now said, okay, let's find out more about this brand. Do you want that brand? And lo and behold, when you actually go a little deeper when you click on Britannia cream crackers, you'll actually see it has Britannia Nutri-Choice cream crackers. Yeah. And I was a little confused, saying that when did that sub-brand come into good old cream crackers?
Britannia Nutri-Choice Oats cream crackers.
Exactly. There you go. So that sequence is important. Earlier it was sequential. But now I think branding and performance or brandformance, as a whole lot of brands call it, actually go hand in hand. Perhaps they are side by side, perhaps they overlap. And I think the CMO earlier would probably lean more on the branding side of things because performance or sales was with the sales head, right?
Yeah.
We all know what the sales head will tell to the marketing head and the marketing head will tell of the sales head, right? They had different incentives perhaps. But now I think those incentives have much better aligned. CMOs are equally on the line for sales. Sales owners are equally on the line for building the brand. So I feel in that changing world, what is happening with technology, what is happening with shortened purchase cycles, what's happening with distribution, decision making, and any other deal that you come up with has got democratized. I think it's at a good place. Frankly, I don't think it has gone for a toss, as you said in your intro. I actually feel that the ball is up in the air and it's game on in that sense.
Okay. We're living in a world of quarterly results. Okay. So
Yes.
unfortunately, that's the
Yes.
truth. And the moment you look at that brand performance, it almost looks as if they are fighting against each other when they
Right.
actually are not. But because of this urgency, need to do it now and today, is why this debate is there in the first place at all.
So what about the reverse? Can or does performance build a brand?
Shall I take that?
Yes.
Yeah, so I mean, from the FMCG world, if you look at it, I think one of the best things that a brand manager can ask for is trial, right? If performance is inducing trial, trial is one sure short way of building the brand, provided everything else is fine. I mean, the product is good, the pricing is right, but trial inducement, performance is able to do to a large extent. The traditional funnel of awareness to building a brand, to trial to building a brand is also possible. And trial can happen, like the cream cracker case. I'm sure there must have been Nabati, which I think is what he was referring to as a foreign brand.
Yeah.
We never knew about this Indonesian brand, right? Suddenly
Yeah.
you see it and then you start thinking, boss, these products are at par,
Yeah.
or maybe even better sometimes. So
Yeah.
therefore, trial is enabled. So when trial is enabled, that builds the brand in some way. So that's the reverse that I'm referring to.
I'll say it a little differently. Like performance largely comes online. Can I consider that, like, because that's the whole click and
That's
so
the
on.
story.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the story. But just to look at online is still what 8-9% in India, wouldn't be more or probably less if I'm
For
not
FMCG,
mistaken.
yes.
Yeah, broadly.
that.
Yeah,
Huh.
yeah.
Forget electronics and mobile and things
Yeah.
like that. So my view is that that's what you can capture, right? If you have to capture a far bigger, larger brand, performance can only do that much. You will have to create awareness. You will have to build the brand. Unless if you don't do it, see, performance is always push, right? A brand is all about pull. So when you create pull, I think that's where let's say a retail store or a kirana has to keep that product, right? That's where I think the brand building comes into play. Performance can get you there, but as I feel that maybe 5%, 6%, 7%, maybe to that extent. But the moment if you want to be a pull brand, you will have to invest in building the brand. That's how I look at
Slight
it.
difference in thinking here, in the sense that I think the way performance marketing is understood is more
Yes.
online. But in a broad sense, if you see, actually performance is what? Something that enables discovery,
Yeah.
something that enables trial, something
Yes.
that enables a purchase, right?
Correct.
These can be offline as well.
Sure.
So which means to that extent,
Yeah.
a bot display is
Yeah.
performance.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think in certain categories, I've actually seen some of our customers actually have a performance first strategy,
Absolutely.
right? There's no
Yes.
denying that. There are
Yes.
folks who have a performance first strategy, and they do less or negligible traditional branding as we know it in that sense. I think the other variable to consider in a scenario like that is actually the product or the product experience. We are not debating whether cream crackers are good. We know that it's going to be good. You dip into the tea, it's going to have a good experience in that sense. But if that brand is only relying on distribution and maybe an offer and ability to get bought of a online destination, I would say there are brands like that which have actually built a pretty decent presence. What we have seen is that depending on the life cycle of the brand, even that then changes over time. But the product experience is fundamentally something that drives both branding and performance. I don't think you can have only performance or only branding.
Yeah.
Both of them still need the product experience out there in some way or the other.
To add to this, there are two observations that I've had. One is that there are a lot of performance first brands or digital first brands which come in and are able to build a substantial amount of sale. What I've noticed is that sale, after a point, there's a cutoff beyond which it does not grow. And when the brand reaches that limit, it needs to start building brand to go beyond. The second one is that if you need a sale, you need to keep advertising. The minute you stop your performance, you drop straight down to zero. There is hardly any ad stock built. So if you're not making your brand investments and it's purely running by performance, there is an immediate drop with them, and you just cannot turn the tap off. You turn the tap off, your sales drops. If you want to turn the tap off and continue sales, I think brand building becomes very important.
Most of these that we are talking about is the startup world, who start with bootstrapping, and then there is a funding. In each of these cases, there is a metric, right? How many more customers have you added? How much of business have you done? What is the EBITDA, sort of a thing. So that is the race to start with in the first place, which is why that performance first happens for a lot of time. There are several examples. You take the case of Nykaa, Chumbak, any of those. Up to 100 crores, even 150 crores, it's absolutely possible to do it this way, which is performance first. Beyond 150 crores, which is what the point that Ajay is making, which is to saying there is a limit to which it can go beyond. The ad stock can keep you at 100 crores. But that doesn't seem to be the dream of either the financial backer of the startup or the person who has started it up itself. So therefore, when they look at that, then there's absolute necessity to do, can I do something beyond? And which is when the brand thinking starts.
Yes.
But even the dot that Ajay talked about, right? Saying that if it is online, if it is quick commerce, and if it is one product and it's an offer, it's a dot. There's no thing happening. There, I still think there is a bit happening around that dot. So even if I decide to buy that Indonesian brand, it's still led to conversation. There is going to be some amount of conversation and discovery and decision making that's happening in different ways, whether it's through an influencer or online or through a friend and things like that.
So let's now move to, so what are the opportunities available for brands in this continuum? Are there any newer opportunities? Is there a different way how a brand has to look at from discovery till conversion?
Yeah, so I think I made this statement recently at some D2C forum. I actually said that a newer D2C brand actually has more advantages than an incumbent today. So an incumbent, right, in that journey to 150 crores would have taken maybe 3 or 4 or 5 years, would have also built some organizational muscle memory and way of doing things. But a brand which is starting off today need not necessarily have that same journey to reach 150. They could ostensibly do it faster. AI is one big enabler there, right? Earlier, you would actually spend a lot more time doing research, but now that timeline has got crunched. Earlier, you would do a lot more time trying to actually develop a creative. That timeline has got crunched. Earlier, you would crunch data on an Excel sheet or a tricks or whatever, but now you can do it using AI and using any of these platforms. So I think as a company, Google has realized that while we work very, very deeply and intimately with large incumbents, we are working equally deeply with a startup which decided to start up today. And sometimes a startup which hasn't even decided, but decided because they discovered things happening on our platforms in that sense. Even if it is, with an influencer, the sheer democratization of information that has happened because of video platforms has just changed the game for any new startup that is starting off, as well as an incumbent who can actually now tap into that consumer understanding a lot better.
Perfect. So can you kind of give different channels or different opportunities that are there at the 3 different stages of the so-called old funnel? What are the opportunities?
Not necessarily have a script on this one, but let's take a startup, let's take a mid-sized company, and let's take a large company. Today, the biggest thing that a large company can actually do is to move from being a data-poor brand to a data-rich brand, even though they are a large company. And on the other side of the spectrum, a startup can actually start off as a high-tech startup than a not so high-tech startup to start with. I think there are tools for their entire continuum in that sense. That's one way to think about it. Second would be from a branding point of view. Again, if you look at a small, mid, large company, today you need not have the classic 30-seconder in place, right? Today you can actually start with influencer marketing. Great example is a brand like Purple, which is a startup perhaps somewhere here or maybe even here. They actually started with an influencer first strategy, where they said that, we will use that word of mouth to grow. Today, a huge brand like Hindustan Lever is now saying that we will do a large percentage of our spending on influencer marketing. So that's on the branding side of things, where you can leverage content as a way to really scale much faster. I think on the performance side of things, leveraging AI, I think it's a level playing field for all of these people. There is no one advantage that either could have in that sense. I think there the critical thing is to use a lot of these AI tools. So we have a tool called AI Max, which is beautiful because earlier a campaign would only get optimized on the basis of search terms, but now a campaign can get optimized on the basis of not just what people are searching, but also your web page and which web page the user lands on, even if it is dynamically created at the last moment using automatically created assets. So the old guy probably has a static website and uses only brand key terms, but now you can use category insights, create dynamically generated assets, create dynamically generated web end page as well, right? So I think all of these for each type of customer across branding, across performance, and across technology, there are various ways to really jumpstart today, is what I feel.
Okay. So, Ajay, you want to just add something to this in terms of in real life, how the whole so-called continuum is being managed, given the fact that you have significant amount which is going to be, so to say, offline first kind of customer and then online customer. So how do you put the whole thing, complex thing together from a channel stacking perspective, from a creative perspective?
So I think one big opportunity that has come up because of a significant change in the way media is consumed is that there is an opportunity to actually engage the consumer in what was traditionally a one-to-many format. Today, there are a lot of brands who use this one-way communication in a two-way format. As an example, when you have a television ad with a QR code, which is actually becoming quite common these days, you have the ability to allow the consumer to gain more information about that product, about the brand. Similarly, on newspapers. Also, we have done some work where you create an advertising piece of advertising. Using AI, you allow the consumer to be a part of that advertising. So there's an ad, there is a brand ambassador. The consumer has the ability to use a QR code or some other form of impetus to go up and put themselves in that ad and then communicate that branding further, that piece of communication further to their set of, their circle. I think that has become extremely powerful.
And I had two quick thoughts building on Ajay's description of surfaces, right? One is video commerce and the other is lifetime value.
Yes.
Both are actually in very different spheres of things. But today, if a creator can tag a product in his or her video, which can actually drive consumption to platforms like Flipkart and Myntra. So they could actually be reviewing a mobile phone, which is what a lot of those influencers do, but there'll actually be a link which actually drives back, right? So it's called affiliate revenues in that sense. It drives back to Flipkart and Myntra. And today that partnership is actually driving a lot of good GMV for the entire ecosystem. The second one is LTV. Earlier, you would actually have to build a business for many years to understand LTV. So you would actually have to sell for cycles and cycles, understand consumers, and then predict, create cohorts and predict LTV. But today, on a first click, we have seen gaming companies especially, when they actually see a consumer clicking on any of their ad units for the first time, on the basis, using obviously AI-based analysis, they can actually predict the LTV of that customer on the first interaction with amazing accuracy.
Yeah, I mean, just listening to you all, I mean, what I feel is that at a very larger level, I think it's a democratization of marketing, right?
Yes,
which is what has
absolutely.
happened. Yeah, it was like
and
never...
that too, democratization in terms of the idea,
Yes,
in
yes.
terms of message, in terms of the execution and
Absolutely.
engagement.
Absolutely. So I think larger companies which, had to sort of know your customer was in a certain way, as you rightly said today. I think for them, it's all about bringing the data and understanding your consumer and so on. And if I have an idea today, I think I can start. I mean, it's no longer the days where, you had to have a certain kind of marketing budget to even kickstart. not required today. I mean, there are people, businesses, they just start from WhatsApp.
Yeah.
I think that's the whole democratization of whether you call it marketing, data, all of that has happened, and probably this is the best time for anybody to get into business and do what they want to.
I agree with all of this, but I still need to balance this a little bit, because in the sense that there is a world which is very clearly what has been spoken about. There's another huge world. Unfortunately, the entire world of all of these things, startups, everything that we're talking about is still in minimal percentages. And these tend to have a far higher mind share than market share.
Yeah.
Because all boardrooms are filled with people who use apps all the time, who do e-commerce all the time. So there is a world outside. I think we need to be conscious of that when we talk performance or any of those. So I just want to draw that balance in one place. Having said that, this is also, whether it's online, offline, whichever world you're talking about, I think we're in a stage in India where we're talking about the death of a national brand. There cannot be a national brand anymore.
Oh, that's a very big prediction.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a prediction. I'm just seeing that happening repeatedly.
Sure.
So it is going to be a bunch of smaller, regional, stronger brands. Surprisingly, there could be some national ones. But when this happens, whether it's online or offline, there is going to be an intense interaction between both the worlds. When these both worlds start interacting significantly, all these tools come into play. Whether the AI tools, not necessarily meant only for the online sale, right? The AI tool is immensely useful for a street salesman.
True.
In terms of what he needs to pitch into the shop for the next occasion. So all these tools are going to come into play, but it's also going to allow interaction strongly. That's a...
So I had a question on the local phenomena that you're talking about, right? What is your view on how they are going to evolve from a technology, branding, and performance point of view? You know,
I think if you go back 20 years, you could say that's a local brand. I mean, the tone itself is I am here, you're there, right? You can't do that anymore. You're a local brand, you're on par. Because if you look at it, I'll name a few brands which you may have heard of. Like there's an oil called Gold Winner, right? One state, right?
One state.
AVT, one state. Wagh Bakri, 2 states.
Yeah.
These are all
brands.
Balaji is number 11 in terms of consumer reach points today. Huge brand.
Yeah.
Small brands, right? So what they have managed to do, we said democratization, right? The democratization has happened to them as well, which means they've been able to democratize the offer, which is the product itself, because it's out there, it's available, the technology, the know-how, everything is available. Packaging, democratized. Communication, you said it's easy to create anymore. There are enough people available, enough technologies available for them to create it themselves. Putting it out in media, democratized. So all of these are possible from their time. So it's only what is constraining them is perhaps ambition.
Yeah.
Right? Do I really want to go beyond, or am I happy being where I am? I understand this consumer, I understand this market so well, so let me dominate as much as possible in this before I think of anything else. And from technology, that also is completely democratized for them, right? I mean, there is not Balaji, for example, not much gets spoken about the Balaji wafers, right? But they all have intense handheld tools available for their salesmen on the street, for them to be able to, I mean, they're able to actually, just a quick scan of the shelf, even if something is left behind, they're able to predict what is the possible offtake from this place so that I can place in that much kind of thing.
Absolutely. It's a very big point, actually.
Yeah.
Right? Even technology is now democratized.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
See, because it's everywhere in these local brands. What is it? I'm talking about the non-tech local brands. Like, it's not the D2C brands. If you talk about the local brands, most places it's the second generation that is now in place, right? So the second generation does one of two things. It either says, I don't want to do this business, give me the money, I'll find my way out, is one.
Right.
The second one is saying, I'll do business the way I want to do it. So I'll bring in technology, I'll bring in global design, I'll bring in global technology, I'll bring in global methods and practices with which I'm able to prove that I can do better than the previous generation.
Yeah.
Before I jump into an ambition of, do I go further? Do I look at newer products, newer countries?
So in terms of the whole thinking, in terms of short-term sales and brand equity. And there's got to be some alignment that happens overall amongst all stakeholders within the company. So do you all have anything to talk about that? Anything to share in terms of how it happens in practice or something? Maybe Pawan can.
See, I think obviously, like today, I think performance gives you a trial. I think that's what I think it was mentioned, and I think it does. It helps you to kickstart, right? to see, how a customer is responding, what's happening. Therefore, the initial investments do go into performance, right? But once you are confident, once you are sure of, now it needs a scale, then I think you will have to build a brand. Somewhere people think that online is performance and everything else is brand. I think online or digital is as much as brand building, right? So much so that we've changed our terminology, because people used to get confused. Now we call it ATL digital, for instance, just to bring in the ATL to digital, right? To say that, listen, this is also a way of building your brand, and this is where you can do. I mean, today I think that because of the penetration, it stands on its own, and you can create the entire funnel in the world of digital itself, right? You begin with performance, and then no brand can ever be built just through performance, is what my take is. It's a journey. You start and then you build.
So one thought is that the starting point can be a set of dashboards.
Right.
Because let's face it, the old way of thinking of brand led does leave a lot to be done in the performance area.
Absolutely.
So you spoke about, let's say, something lifetime value.
Yeah, right.
So maybe bring in lifetime value, bringing in things like what is the cost of acquisition.
Yes.
Bringing in what is, for example, your ESOV, what we call, what is their extra SOV. So maybe if you create some such, metric, put that as a starting point, and make sure that everybody is chasing all those metrics. Could be, I thought, a nice way of kickstarting this entire thing, so that you have something which everybody goes by. And
I think, Shripad, what you're referring to is a kind of a playbook. Each organization, each category, each brand defines a playbook for itself. If you're a startup brand, your playbook is different. You're saying, let me get those numbers in, let me get those people in. So there, the metrics, all the metrics that you spoke about, which one takes the lead is something that you can define. Should it be 50 crores, 60 crores? That's up to the brand to decide, or up to the funder to decide. So at some point of time, you say, let me pause in terms of its percentage contribution and build the other. So initially, you expect the performance to build the brand, the question that you asked earlier. And then you actually genuinely work on what you want to stand for and make that communication in place, etc. So that is the kind of playbook that one has to evolve. And obviously, it changes by category, individual, and the organization.
I actually think that there's a lot of restarts that need to happen. Right? So a large company, for example, I genuinely feel should restart at this point of time. I'll give you like a real world phenomena that's happening. Right? At this point of time, you take any product in the spectrum on your plate, there is more information about it, whether it is a humble roti or the amazing rice or even the vegetable or meat or poultry, whatever, right? There's much more information about it. So even if you have built a brand, you should think about how to build dashboards and have all of these metrics. I think it's even more important for some of the larger folks to do the restart in a similar, if not exactly same way. And therein I also feel that there is actually a playbook that can happen across.
Sure.
Right? So just like the startup is now gathering some data, even that data poor large conglomerate needs to now become data rich. And then figure out what it needs to do next in that sense.
So maybe I think the next thing possibly that one should do is look at some kind of a measurement architecture. And there must be an agreed way of looking at both these things, for brand health as well as performance, and what are the tools that you want overall. What has been your experience, Ajay, in terms of, brands having some kind of a measurement architecture, and is there a shift you are seeing that is happening?
Yeah. So I think, we've been talking about two ends of the spectrum. One is the digital first ecosystem and the other is the legacy ecosystem. So you have the startup ecosystem, the digital first ecosystem, which looks at pure ROI in terms of, what is the contribution to sale. And I think that's purely that's how they start off. That I'm investing 100, am I getting 50, am I getting 75, am I getting 200? And those ratios actually are shocking in some cases where there is an over investment to deliver a small amount. But I think that's one side of it. The other side of it is, where you're looking at a lot of brand health metrics, you're looking at a lot of MMM models, where you're trying to justify, what is the medium or what is the kind of input which results in a better output from a brand health perspective. The challenge with the right side is that it's time, it takes long, and possibly the shortening of the cycles means that you can't wait so long. You cannot say that I'll do this, like I think Ramki said, you can't have quarterly data. Quarterly data is like 5-year-old data. So you need a lot more speed and a lot more quick MMMs or whatever, which allow you to make decision making a lot faster for the legacy brands, and for the for the digital first brands, a little bit of about what is the index that a performance metrics will improve by. What I mean is that if you have invested X amount in building brand, top funnel, how does the index on the ROI change? So if when you're starting off with 100, does it become 105? Does it become 110? I think that would be a very interesting way to look at the data. And I think this can come from both sides. How can my final performance be improved if there is a level of investment or a level of ad stock that has been built?
I have a I have a P0 that I think everyone should do, whether it's a startup or a large brand, which is, I really think that measurement has to move away from the ground to the cloud. The first thing that every company should think about doing is actually to figure out how to measure, where they're able to get data from every possible data store that they have, whether it is a CRM, which traditionally sits with another department, where someone is calling and data is being captured out there, or whether it is data which sits on a platform like, say, Google or any other platform in that sense, or data that is coming in from the stores. I think the first thing that everyone has to do, and everyone actually says that they've probably done it, but not really so.
So what you're saying is unify all
Absolutely.
data,
because we're actually seeing
one place.
We're actually seeing that allows you to actually figure out the impact that branding has on performance and vice versa.
Yeah.
The impact that any activity that they did, whether it's traditional brand building and whether they scanned something in the stores and figured out if the fill rate was good enough and all of that, right? I think that is really a P0 as far as I'm concerned, from a measurement framework point of view. If you've not done that, then somebody else has done that or doing that, and that they will probably be in a better position to take better decisions than you.
From the time when probably we started as brand managers, I think brand health was everything, right?
Yeah.
Everyone used to talk about what is the level of TOMA, what consideration, blah, blah, blah. From there, slowly, the importance of behavioral metrics have come in a lot more. When I say behavioral metrics, maybe purchase metrics is one of them. And I'll give you a simple example, right? I mean, our thinking used to be, if you are SECA and if you are from Khan Market area in Delhi, you will probably buy my brand, right? That's just been flipped around, right? You bought this brand, so you could be that, is the way it is. So, because you look at it, what Amazon or anybody does, right? You bought this, people like you bought this, therefore will you buy this, right? So it is not going to be, you were aware, you considered, and so exactly. So brand health metrics, is it important? Of course, it's absolutely important. But what comes at what stage, what is the level of importance you give to brand health versus behavioral metrics is something that is evolving. But like you rightly said, the ultimate answer is in seeing all of these together. The unfortunate truth is all of them do not come at the same time frame, and the comparison becomes difficult. One is for 3 months before, one is for today, one is for tomorrow. So that is where the challenge is. If that can be cracked, then it's...
So if, Pawan, you can get into... So probably someone needs to wear the hat of brand health, brand building.
Yeah.
And create a sort of brand first execution system of sorts.
Yeah.
So it could have things like, let's say, distinctive brand assets.
Yeah.
It can have things like a creative system, building creative at scale. It can have category entry points.
Yeah.
What are the category entry points? It could also have something like look at the full funnel.
Yeah.
And unless someone or some system looks at what I call the brand first execution system, it's not going to get its importance.
Yeah.
So should that be looked at maybe periodically as a construct, as a structure and reviewed under some definitive heads. You can, these are not days where you can go overboard and do anything. You have to have definitive things that you will do. Put them down, have some measurement for it, and review and go. So any thoughts you have on?
If we look at it, obviously everything boils down to sales. I mean, that's what I think a large part of our discussion tend to happen. But I think a marketing team also needs to look at maybe I'm just saying, if it's in the world of social media, then look at engagement, right? Like, what kind of engagement are you creating? What kind of conversation are you creating? How is your customer sort of responding back, right? That's one way of looking at it, not just be obsessed about ROAS all the time, right? That's another piece. Because if you don't look at some of these other metrics, your brand is not going to grow, right? Finally, you are milking the brand through performance, right? Therefore, I think the top funnel is as important as it can get, right? You equally need to see your brand health in terms of how it's moving, whether vis-a-vis competition or category and so on.
So Satya, are you seeing any difference in terms of how brands are looking at these things that I said, like, what are the entry points, different new entry points, then what kind of brand assets you must build, and also what kind of a whole creative development you should do.
In fact, I wanted to double click on the assets part of it, right? If you look at the old way of doing things, there was a key asset that needed to be there, and everybody had eyes on that key asset. That was the one that got approved, and then versions of that got created. But when brands started to expand into other markets, language became a layer. When brands started to expand into other people in the same household, the characters started to change and things like that, right? But it was fairly sequential, and it had a starting point. But today what we're actually seeing is that brand owners understand that you need to have a different creative development process in that sense. Especially brands who earlier would sell only in stores, but now are selling on an online marketplace. Earlier everything was very, very controlled, and it started with one asset. But now, using AI in the creative side of things, the entire generative AI revolution that's happened in the last couple of years, marketers are very, very comfortable now understanding that yes, that one creative that came on a marketplace, I might not have approved it. It's no longer controlled, and it doesn't have a starting point. It's very, very dynamic, and there are many ways in which, whether it's a startup or an established brand, can actually again reinvent themselves.
So Ajay, we used to have in the olden days discussions around, okay, now we are starting a new theme campaign and this is what we're doing, or there's a new offer or something. So how are you seeing the entire interplay? Where does media come in? How do campaigns develop? Is there a budget? Is there a budget for branding versus performance?
The beauty of this is today that the whole thing has been turned on its head, really, because you are looking at a customer, you're looking at his journey, you're looking at what kind of medium will actually influence him or be in the right position to target that consumer at that point of time, and you're trying to build communication around that. Yes, the brand strategy, the brand, the base comms for a particular campaign, that remains. But as you're creating your assets, media plays a very, very strong role. And you define actually what are the kind of assets and how it needs to be developed. And it's no longer about go on this medium or that medium, but it's about chasing a consumer. Today, whenever they are creating a particular asset, we are looking at how to create an asset which can go across various formats. Today, when you're making a TVC, you're actually making various renditions of it. You're thinking how this particular TVC can play out in different forms and different formats. And I think that's extremely interesting. And
today, I've seen brand managers, when they interact with influencers, that dynamic has changed, especially when they have to react to something that actually happened yesterday. So let's say a new phone got launched yesterday, like the Pixel 10 got launched yesterday. So I'm sure other brands are now thinking, how do you, get some share of voice and top of mind in this week or in this month and all of that. A lot of brands actually work with influencers because they're able to actually very quickly reach out to audiences through, their user base that they have so fondly grown. And there the script actually takes a little bit of a backseat because There, it's not about, hey, here's my script, please read it out. Because if an influencer reads out a script, it's not going to work. Because their audiences have come there not for that, they've come there for their unique authenticity and personality and individuality. So a lot of brands also there are experimenting a lot. It's about telling a story in a way in which the influencer can tell it best in that sense.
Yeah, absolutely right. The whole starting point and the context is entirely driven more by the consumer, the exact state of mind, and the, so to say, media more than the product.
Yeah.
So that brings me to measurement. Because if you are having this entire continuum, you have got certain goals, you have got certain actions you are taking, and each of these there is money involved. So somewhere this whole thing needs to be captured in terms of some measurement. So any thoughts on this full funnel measurement, so to say, and in terms of what are the interventions, what are the various components, how that can be done?
So I personally believe one should not, what shall I say, worry too much about creating common sets of measurements, because performance by itself is metrics. Everything about it is metrics. Absolutely. 100% measurable.
Absolutely.
And brand by itself, we had our conventional metrics. There's absolutely no need to measure both of them together. If you want a common measure, it's business. Yeah. So I don't think we need to take a brand measure which is combining performance and brand. It's a futile exercise, because the objectives are different for both of these. I mean, we started by saying brand as performance, right? I don't even think we should think as brand first approach or performance first approach. It's together, right? And it depends on the state of business or the point in the life cycle that you are in, and then create that kind of a playbook. The metrics that are, let them be as it is. Over and above this, we've added the financial metrics, right? Like everyone spoke about ROAS, everyone spoke about long-term returns and things like that. All of these are already available. We don't need to create any more metrics. Metrics are there. You just need to read them and accept them. Acceptance is usually the problem. You say, I'll take this but not this because this is favorable to my theory. That's my submission.
So, I mean, just some nuance there, right? I mean, we now have hundreds and hundreds of data points, not just from India, but across the world, where we're actually seeing that actually looking at branding and performance together and then taking the right decisions on the insights that it uncovers actually is reducing your CAC. It's driving sales. Okay, it's increasing your return on advertising. We are seeing that consistently. And the way to do that and the hypothesis is very simple, right? You know so much more about that consumer now. Earlier, you were living in a black box. You don't know who is the person buying from your store. Okay, you sent out a campaign, on TV. You don't know who consumed it, right? So you are actually living in that thing. So to not use a tool that gives you better insight when you combine both branding and performance together is actually leaving money on the table at this point of time. Hundreds of examples where folks have actually understood that branding drives more performance. Hundreds of examples that we have.
Just picking up on that, really, the whole challenge with the fixation with performance and ROI makes our efforts very short term, and it's all about and this is a trap actually, which some brands we have noticed are falling into, even some legacy brands. When they try to too much move towards performance, it's a trap they fall into, because it starts off saying, let's invest behind what drives sale. And then you reach a point when you have actually ignored your brand and you have diminished your ad stock. And then you are back to, a position where there is no pull. Like, Satya was talking about earlier, there is just no pull. It's purely push. And then to break that cycle and start saying that, what, I need to take out 50% of this money to put back into top funnel becomes extremely difficult, because 50% reduction in bottom funnel translates to 50% reduction in sale for the short term. and it's such a trap. And I have seen, and we have experienced a few brands in our, where the brand manager or the head of the business moves so far ahead under this lure of efficiency and ROI, and then gets stuck in this vicious cycle and is not able to break out to to start focusing on the brand again. It's a massive challenge, actually.
So I'm going to switch that question a little different for you, because you spoke a lot about the companies who are on the other end, which is the world where they are trying to start up, etc. What would you say? What would be your word of advice or measure or whatever it is for a legacy? I won't call it legacy. Legacy seems like prehistoric. No, they're big brands, so to speak. Yeah.
Right. I think big brands also have to restart. Today, there are enough big brands which are very, very focused on performance at this point of time as well. But there, the opportunity to really understand their consumers better and creating a slightly data-rich environment. Even, for example, making sure that their performance creative is not static, but the performance creative itself can embrace dynamism. That itself is better branding of the performance creator. So I think using technology, using data, I would say is the biggest thing a big brand should focus on at this point of time. Whether they are indexing highly on performance or branding, those who are at a good balance should understand the interplay better and figure out how you can take better decisions, right?
Just to add on to that, might sound cliched, but full funnel in the true sense is what you really need to look at. I think the ability to engage with the consumer has really been heightened, and a lot of investment, into that builds the brand a lot stronger on both sides. Because when there's engagement, there's, like Ramki said, there is some kind of trial, there's some kind of familiarity building at a very deep level with the consumer, which therefore helps both sides of the spectrum. And you really can't say, I just want to do this top funnel or I want to do bottom funnel. I think you need to go through the funnel. Your efforts at both sides need to contribute to the overall stature of the brand. So and some brands which are doing that are really seeing a lot of success and long-term success. So
actually, I just think that the other point that we possibly don't think about enough, but it's always there at the back of our mind, is that earlier we were talking about 10 million consumers, right? Now we're talking about in hundreds at this point of time. So there are, India, lucky that we are, that consumer base is going to grow. So there's going to be ample space for brands to experiment. There's going to be ample space for newer categories to emerge, newer distribution models to emerge. So I think that's one good tailwind that we should all...
And add to that, the flexibility that manufacturing does today. You're able to manufacture 5 kgs. Exactly. There's nothing called minimum order quantity or minimum economic size. You can manufacture 5 kgs and still be successful. So in general, what we heard, there's no understating the importance of brand. But there's no overstating it either, right? So to that extent, brand performance coexist, as you rightly called it, brand as performance, or as Satya called it, brand formance. I mean, that's the kind of an evolutionary world that we are living in. But let's not sweat too much about which works better, etc. It will derive itself based on which state of the brand that you are in. And if need be, restart, like you said, the control alt is required for some of the large brands as well. So getting all of these together, getting those things in place for a clear world where we are saying it's going to be a fruitful coexistence of both, and let's enjoy the democratization that exists of the technology. And it's complex, yes, but life was complex all the time, right? When cable and satellite came, we said life has become too complex. There are 230 channels. Now we are saying it's more complex. Complexity is what we thrive in, and that brings out the best experts like you.
Okay, so what we are saying is, go back to basics.
Always
Have a single view. Have all the data, whether it is brand or performance, at one place, and look at it very simply. What is driving what based on your brand, what you are trying to achieve is what we are really saying. And don't get caught business too much data and go overboard or split hair or split the two or whatever.
Business is the best metric for everything.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I think what we have achieved is we have really got a pretty decent playbook which anybody can just go through and get some insights. So thank you so much, for this lovely discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you.